Hey, Adam with the BMW Repair Guide. Today we are going to be installing some performance springs on this 2011 335i. These performance springs are going to lower this car about 1 inch, as well as add some awesome handling characteristics to it. So we are going to do step-by-step video. Let's get started. So we're going to be installing these front lowering springs by Swift on our E90 struts. These are super cool. They're going to drop the front end of the car about 1 inch, give it a super aggressive look, as well as some really cool handling characteristics. You should have the struts out of your car by now. If you don't know how to take the struts out of your E90, we have a YouTube video that gives you step-by-step instructions, as well as you can go to our website, bmwrepairguide.com, where we also have step-by-step instructions with photos on how to get the struts out. Once you get the struts out, you're gonna have to compress the springs to get the old springs off and the new springs on. We use a professional spring compressor. We use the Brannick 7600. This thing is awesome. It's about 800 bucks. We have a link below in our description if you want to order one. I highly suggest, if you're a home mechanic or a professional, that you have one of these in your garage. They pay for themselves very quickly if you're doing a lot of work on your car, or if you have other BMWs or any other car, if you're doing any kind of suspension work where you need to compress springs. We do not like to use handheld spring compressors. But if we do have to use one, if we're in a situation where we have no other choice, use a plate one. We do not recommend using the hook style spring compressors. We find them to be extremely dangerous. We're not 100% fond of these either, but if you don't have a choice and you have to use a hand style spring compressor, definitely go with the plate one. We also suggest going to your local repair shop. Most of them have spring compressors, professional ones like this, and will usually compress your springs, sometimes maybe for a free lunch, who knows. But it depends on which repair shop you go to and how nice they are. So anyway, like I said, we went ahead and removed the front struts from the E90. We removed the old springs. And as you can see, we are compressing the new Swift springs so we can install them on new struts. We're actually going to install new struts on this car. The old struts were old, so we want to go ahead and replace them with new ones to make sure that we have that nice firm ride that we're looking for. Once again, professional spring compressor is awesome. I mean, I can compress the spring with one hand. And it's super safe. Nothing's going to explode in my face. Highly recommend it. Once again, if you need to purchase one, see our description below. Okay, we've replaced the front lowering springs on this E90 335i, and now we're going to go to the back of the car and replace these stock rear axle springs with these really cool Swift lowering springs. These are going to lower the rear end about 1 inch, 0.8 to 1 inch. So it's going to give this car a really cool, aggressive look and really enhance the driving characteristics. So to get this rear spring out, it's pretty simple. We're going to remove these Torx bolts and this main bolt here that attaches the control arm to the rear hub. And then we're going to also remove the nut off the rear shock. And then we'll be able to lower the control arm down and pull the spring right out. So let's get started. So before removing the nuts and bolts so we can lower the lower control arm, make sure that you have everything supported with either a floor jack. If you're a home mechanic, you're probably using a floor jack, or if you're a pro mechanic in a shop, using a stand-up jack like this, screw jack. But you want to support this lower control arm so everything doesn't fall down when we remove the nuts and the bolts. The first thing we're going to do is remove the nut off the rear shock, off the bottom of the rear shock. To do that, we're going to hold the shaft of the shock with a 15mm open-end wrench so it doesn't just spin freely, and we'll use a 16mm socket to go ahead and remove this nut. We went ahead and loosened it up already, but normally it would take a little bit more effort than this to get it off. But we went ahead and loosened it up since we're making a video and we want to move things along. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove these two Torx bolts with an E12 Torx socket. And they come out relatively easy. Then finally, we're going to remove the bolt that attaches the swing arm, or excuse me, the lower control arm to the hub with a 22mm opened end wrench and a 22mm socket. This bolt is on very tight. If you're not using an impact wrench, you'll probably need to use a breaker bar. We already used a breaker bar to loosen it. Many people ask why we don't use impact wrenches in our videos. It's because A, we're old school and enjoy using hand tools, and B, a lot of our videos are for the home mechanic who don't have impact tools, so we like to show how it's done with manual tools. Now we'll go ahead and lower the control arm down. And there you go. This is the old stock spring out, and we'll go ahead and install a new one. Okay, we have all the bolts and nuts reinstalled. At this point, you're going to want to use a torque wrench to go ahead and make sure everything is torqued to spec. We're going to put the torque values on the screen for you right now. And here's the finished product. We have dropped this car an inch in the front and an inch in the back. You can see it has a super aggressive stance now. We just took it for a ride around the block, and man, is this thing incredible. It just absolutely eliminated most of the body roll, and it just rides like a track car now, but still has the comfort of a street car.